All right, Jill, are you ready? Sorry about the late start here. Just had a couple questions to resolve. So let's go ahead and call to order the Watertown Board of Adjustment meeting for Thursday, May 10th, 2018. Can I get a roll call, please?
Stein.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
Dargis Johnson.
Here.
Voletsky.
Present.
Hanson.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Kays, Culhane, and Olson are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. So first item on the agenda is the approval of the April 5th, 2018 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion, please? Motion by Stein. Second by Johnson. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Second item on the agenda is actually a withdrawal of applications. Jill, is there any action we need to take on that?
It's just a notice that they have been withdrawn. One has actually been postponed, and the other one will not come
Okay.
before you.
Okay, so one of them we will see at a later meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then item 3 is an applicant from Greg Hansen. Can you take us through that one?
The applicant seeks approval for the sales offices, packaging, warehousing, and vending distribution of ag commodities, seed, in the C3 Highway Commercial District per 21, 2803, 7, 16, and 18, which is grain, elevators and terminal, warehouse, and other uses of the same and general character, contingent upon compliance with 21-2801, the purpose of the C3 Highway Commercial District, and specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to 21-0202, 2B7A through H. Staff findings are that the following are listed conditional uses for the C3 Highway Commercial District. 21-28037, again, is grain elevators and terminal, which is allowed by conditional use in the C3 zone. Also allowed by conditional use is the wholesale establishment or warehouse in a completely enclosed building. And 280318 are other uses which, in the opinion of the Board of Adjustment, are of the same general character as those enumerated in the C3 district. We'll move on to definitions. Wholesale merchandising is wholesalers either sell or arrange the purchase of goods to other businesses and normally operate from a warehouse or office. Warehouse, these service establishments operate storage facilities for general merchandise, refrigerated goods, and other warehouse products. The applicant submitted the attached in your agenda, the written request and site plan floor plan, which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. Section 210202, 2B7A through H are specific rules governing individual conditional uses. This includes the review of ingress and egress to the property, off-street parking and loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility with the neighborhood, so to speak. The site plan and request, in it were not addressed such things as grain legs, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, refuse containment, traffic flow, which would include loading routes and areas. Of note, the building official does not require a building permit for the elevated hopper or gravity flow bins. However, the submitted site plan does show compliance for the typical accessory structure setback regulations on those. Chapter 2163 is off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards. The submitted site plan does not show off-street parking spaces, aisles, layout, traffic flow, but sufficient area exists for the minimum necessary as required by the building official. I'm going to pop up what was submitted for a site plan here. Chapter 2165 is outside storage and display requirements for specific uses. Outside storage may be permitted if acceptable screening is provided and approved by the building official, and merchandise which is offered for sale, rental, or lease may be displayed beyond the confines of a building. The submitted site plan does not show plans for outside storage, screening, or displays, and it was not addressed in the letter. Chapter 2173, landscape and lighting standards. The minimum number of trees to be located on the development site or lot shall be 1 tree per 50 foot of frontage. That is 3 to 4 trees because there is 175 feet of frontage on this lot. A grass boulevard with trees, sidewalk, trail cover, curb gutter, driveways is not shown on the submitted site plan, but note that the applicant is not seeking variances from any of these lacking requirements. And Title 24 is the subdivision of land. Just of note that this proposed parcel is a legally described subdivision of a platted lot. It does comply with the C3 zone minimum area and width requirements. So this board must consider if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 21-0202 2B7A through H, Chapters 2163, 2165, and 2173 in Title 24 as just addressed. If application is endorsed, conditions of approval may be considered such as screening of or limiting of any outside storage, equipment, or material, limiting all processing to inside the building, or any other conditions this board deems necessary.
Thank you, Jill. I'd like to open the public hearing if anybody's here to speak on behalf or against. Is Mr. Hanson here? Would you come up and go ahead and state your name for the record?
Greg Hanson, owner of Hanson Egg Service.
So I think we probably will have a few questions here for you, Greg. So one of the things, and Jill brought it up too, was the outside storage.
Mm-hmm.
Typically we have some restrictions on outside storage in the area. Are you planning any outside storage other than the bins?
No, and we may be moving the bins to the right side, but it'll still be the 20 feet off the line. We might not have the bins in the back just for easier loading. But we do not plan on handling any grain outside of its containment. I would say 90% of our seed that will come in will be in bags or boxes.
And the processing would be inside the building?
Yes.
How about the parking areas? Is that going to be a paved parking?
I would assume so, or probably do cement in the front.
Okay.
At this time, I am the only employee, so I won't have a lot of people that will be parking.
Jill, did we receive any letters on for or against?
No comments.
Do you have any elevation views of what those grain bins would look like?
I do not. I want to say they're about 50, 60 feet tall. It'd be very similar to, what's that? Yeah, like a cement hopper.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And those, I do not know if we're going to put the tanks in right away because that's an awfully big purchase for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope to put up just the building this summer and see how things go business-wise before we make the purchase of bins, because that's a big investment to undertake. So
procedurally, Jill, if we approve the bins on the site plan today and it's 2 years down the road, would he have to come back before us, or if they're on the site plan?
Well, we rely on the site plan to be accurate for what you're approving unless you give him some specific leeway. Otherwise, when there are changes to a site plan, such as an addition to the building or something, that changes could change parking and everything, so that would come back before you.
Okay.
Is the driveway going to be gravel, concrete, paved for the semis to be driving on, or?
probably gravel for now. I'd like to go to cement, but it adds up pretty quick. So at this point, yes, just gravel. And then we're going to have cement in front of each door.
In front of each roll-up door
Mhm.
or walk-in door?
And
too?
walk-in doors too.
Okay.
Yes.
And then are you going to have a green area in front with the trees and the grass?
I really haven't thought about that part yet, but I'm sure we will. I don't want to have all gravel out there. I want it to be somewhat nice when my customers show up. So we probably will have some greenery out there.
Are you going to have more employees than just yourself once you get it built?
No. I would see more employees joining me as soon as 4 to 5 years, maybe.
Okay.
At this time, seed sales is kind of one-man job, and if we do hire somebody else, it'd be part-time help in the spring.
Okay.
So this street does have the curb and gutter then installed. The one to the north of there is the one that's still unfinished.
Yes, that's correct. This street is paved with curb and gutter, and just of note, the access to the property will have to be paved into the private part of the property.
And Mr. Hanson, you're going to meet the necessary requirements for the.
Yeah, whatever
Okay.
whatever I have to do, yeah.
Are you a new business, or have you been in business someplace else before?
Yeah,
this?
I don't know. I was selling seed in Wilmot with my parents since 2004, and I was commuting from Watertown to Wilmot since 2004, and I had the opportunity to take the same type of dealership and do it here and quit my commute between here and Wilmot. So I took that opportunity, and I've been renting for the last 2 seasons. This is my second season renting, and we've already outgrown the rental property we have, and I really want to own my own facility. And I feel like we can grow, and this will be 3 times bigger than what I rent right now. So I'm really looking forward to getting in a building and having an office front to meet with customers and hold meetings there. And so.
And I see you mention one sign along the road as big as 4 feet by 8 feet. Is that within the sign ordinance?
I didn't do the review on this particular. Ken is out. Keith is out. It should. Any signage is going to comply with the current sign ordinance, and I know that is going through some changes right now. But you're not asking for variances from any of those.
And that would be the biggest sign that I would put up. Normally, Pioneer dealerships have. It looks like a stop sign, but it's just a little bit bigger than a stop sign. So that's about as big as it'll be. I'm sure we'll just put something on the building. So I don't at this time plan on putting anything along the curb.
And he'll have to apply for a sign permit, so
Right.
then that can be reviewed at that time.
So you're thinking that at some point in time you'll have up to 4 grain bins that are 50 feet tall or thereabouts, or taller.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Now is Jill, is there any other special permits required for that?
We do have height requirements, height maximum in the districts, and like I said, there were no elevation views with this, and I did not get to do the initial. We haven't talked before. I did the processing for the agenda, but in the C3 zone, just for example, the maximum height allowed would be, well, for the primary structure, it's 60 feet in the C3 district. Again, this is not considered an accessory structure, as I did try to point out in the review, because by code, it falls into a category that does not need a permit, at least not by our building official at this time. And the maximum height for an accessory structure otherwise would be 30 feet. So it's, I wish we did have elevation views, just.
So it would by default fall under the principal structure height requirements or height limitations?
I would think it wouldn't be over
Mhm.
60 feet.
I would not be over 60.
But we could, we could put a condition that it not be, and if it did for some reason, we couldn't permit it, and it would, if he so chose, it would have to be appealed.
But you're not planning on building those right away, correct?
Correct.
When do you think they would be built?
Well, they'd be moved. The tanks that I want to buy are up in Wilmot right now on my family farm. So it all just depends on sales. If things go good and if it stops raining, maybe we can get it moved in 2018. But at this time, I plan on 2019.
Is west of Wilmot on Highway 15?
Actually, it's south and east of
South and
Wilmot.
east, okay.
They're the west. No.
You know what I'm talking about, the one where it has the sales and stuff? There's
Oh,
some
that's
of
Whetstone
those.
Egg Supply.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That's not
that's not my family, no.
Okay.
Since the site plan doesn't show where parking and driveway are going to be and the trees and stuff, you're planning concrete, if you were? I mean, if concrete were free, you'd run it down both sides of this
I
building?
would, yes.
Okay. But, I mean, so from, he would just have to meet setbacks then for driveway, I mean, off of his property, or would he, I mean, for semis to pull in and out of there, you'd want it pretty wide, so.
Yes, he has to, well, there's 14 off-street parking spaces to comply with, and he'll have to pave those ones that he knows will be used for sure. And then I believe that the route, the truck route, so to speak, is a little negotiable as far as whether it's grinding materials or gravel or concrete. Is that what Ken discussed with you
Yeah.
probably?
And will we see that plan, or is Ken going to okay that? Because it's not on here.
Correct. Ken will put, along with the city engineer, staff will determine what, what he wants to do is okay, and if it's not, then he'll be back before you.
And Mr. Hansen's not not asking for a variance to any of those requirements. This is simply for the conditional use on the property.
I am confused by the height of the bins, since it doesn't seem to really be covered by anything. How do we kind of slide into defaulting to the principal building and not calling it an accessory structure? I guess I'm uncertain as to that thought process.
Well, Ken did the review with him, and I'm assuming, Ken is not here obviously today or he'd be answering your question, but I'm assuming he doesn't see any issues with it. And I know it became a little bit confusing saying that that they're not, by permitting process or by code, considered a bin is not considered an accessory structure. So it doesn't really need a permit. However, we do oversee their placement, and Ken was okay with this.
And the potential 60-foot, 50-foot, 60-foot height, he was specifically okay with that?
I didn't have get a conversation with him on that. Do you recall anything?
No, I just told him as a normal seed bin is what it was.
Jill, is he coming from that if it's in 10 feet of the primary structure?
Yeah.
No, that's
No.
that's actually what we're saying is not required here, because it isn't a typical accessory structure. It's really, I think, considered. There's actually in the code book, it shows. I wish I would have brought that with me. It actually shows 2 overlapping circles saying what does not get defined by code as an accessory structure. And this falls into those circle areas. And it does not eliminate the height situation, though, I don't think. But I know Ken did review this, and he didn't want anything specific in the report, or didn't ask for anything specific. So I'm pretty sure he thinks it's meeting the requirements.
So this would be meeting any of the setback requirements from the property lines, just as any other principal structure would. So if it was a hotel, say, at 60 feet height, at that positioning on the property, it would meet the requirements. Any other questions from the board? Any other questions from the public? Comments? Thank you, Mr. Hansen. I'll close the public
you.
hearing.
I do have that picture if this helps at all.
in the gray area.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually, let's see, Hopper's elevated is right here, and there's also bins here, and so Ken deduced that this was something other than what he would need to permit as an accessory structure. It's a non-structural component and/or a non-building structure according to code. It's an odd thing. I've never dealt with it before. So.
Because how tall was he saying that the bins would be? Oh, okay.
That's the bin itself with no leg? That's with everything? Okay. It's under 60. Yeah.
Chip, do you, with the fire department, do you see a problem with them having with a 60-foot? No? Okay.
Oh, Chip with the fire department. No, we don't have an issue with, they'll be bolted down, secured to the concrete, you know. So.
Good.
Ask for a motion from the board for discussion. Motion by Mr. Stein.
Second.
Second by Mr. Culhane. Any additional discussion?
Well, I think just as long as those bins, if they do get moved, that they'll still be within the guidelines of setbacks. So, if he moves them to the right side.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear here. Mr. Hanson isn't asking for a variance to the existing city code, so what we're voting on here today is really the conditional use of the property. He would still comply with all the requirements of the C3 district.
Good.
Any additional? And I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Fourth item on the agenda is open public comment period. I believe this is a time where if anybody wants to bring anything up to the board that wasn't specifically covered under the agenda, we'll open that up to the public. Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Any old business, Joe?
Actually, it's not listed as old business, but something that was missed on the agenda was the minutes for I believe it was the last meeting, April 19th. There was confusion, I guess. It used to be that there were two different Board of Adjustments. One was the main Board of Adjustment, and then there was a sign code Board of Adjustment for a while, not even that long. And then recently, a few months ago, that sign code Board of Adjustment was eliminated, and it was all put under the General Board of Adjustment. So we have minutes that were done separately as a sign code Board of Adjustment, but they're really for you guys to sign. Long story long.
This is the minutes from April 19th.
Correct, I believe so.
Were these posted then as part of the agenda, or do we need to have them posted before we can take action on them?
Actually, they were not posted on the agenda. That's why I was giving a bit of an explanation there. The minutes themselves never get put on the agenda as far as for the public to read before the board gets a hold of them.
Okay.
So these wouldn't have been anyway, but it was not listed on there as something to approve, like the general ones were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just wondering if we should have some time for the board to review them before we take action on them. I got a copy right here in front of me, but I don't know if anybody else has seen these and had a chance to read through them. That's the April 5th meeting.
The minutes are usually included on the agenda, aren't they? On the packet?
In the packet.
In the packet for our review.
Yeah, and these were not.
Can we just roll that into the
Yes.
next agenda packet?
Mhm.
Okay. That'd be perfect.
Is that signboard going to go away from the city's website then? And, I mean, it's on there as the sign Board of Adjustment is still on the website.
Yeah, see, I believe that will have to be eliminated too.
But it has minutes and whatnot attached to it. I guess I'm confused as to that housekeeping.
It will
Issue.
probably be merged into the main general one. Everything will be probably located there from now on, I'm assuming. But we'll get that figured out with IT and let you know.
Because now it'll be under just the Board of Adjustment minutes. If you guys have a sign code
Yes.
item, then it'll just be all in those 1 minutes.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we keep that historical archive of the
Yep.
approved minutes and agendas.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so I guess we're down to motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Stein moves to adjourn.
Second.
Second by
Board.
Diana Ford. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Ready when you are.
I didn't have much for my
Thank you,
campaign
Brandy.
fund, so.
I'd like to call to order the Thursday, May 10th, 2018 City Plan Commission meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Colleen,
Here.
Stein?
Here.
Dolly?
Here.
Dargits Johnson?
Here.
Hanson?
Here.
And Olson and Kays are absent.
Thank you, Brandy. Item 1 on the agenda is actually an invitation for public comment participant submittal. If there's anybody here that would like to speak in the public to the board on an item that's not related to an agenda item today, you can approach the podium and give Brandy your name, and we'll call you up towards the end of the meeting. Seeing nobody, we'll move on to item 2, which is election of Plan Commission chairman and vice chairman.
All right, so how we'll go about this is we'll take a nomination for chairman, if anybody wants to make a motion, and then we'll get a second, and then we'll all vote, and then we'll go on to vice chairman.
I nominate Dolly as chairman.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Dolly is the new chairman. Congrats.
I nominate Mark Stein as vice chairman.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, congrats, Stein is the vice chairman. Didn't even have to put signs out.
Moving on to item 3 is approval of the agenda, and I just would make one note here when we get to item 8, which is a vacation request. I will recuse myself at that point, and I'll hand the meeting over at that point to the new vice chair to take over.
Sounds good, thank you.
Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Colhane. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes from the April 19th, 2018 meeting. Can I get a motion? Motion by Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Stein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5 is a preliminary plan update for Gulfview Estates. Brandy, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Blake. So let me pull up what you guys can maybe look at. Okay. So the petitioner is Wayne Meester, who is the president of Gulfview Estates, being the owner of the property, and then Lynn Ford, who is the applicant and agent of the owner. The applicant submitted a plat of Gulfview Estates 12th edition on January 26, 2018. After reviewing the history of Gulfview Estates, it was found that the last preliminary plan was approved in 1997. The last administrative plat of Gulfview Estates 10th edition was recorded on April 7, 2014. Gulfview Estates 11th edition was brought to Plan Commission in 2015 and was recorded on, and that plat was recorded on June 5th of 2015. Gulfview Estates 11th edition was brought to Plan Commission since the master plan, or how we call it now, the preliminary plan, was expired, and a plat cannot be administratively platted under those conditions. The Plan Commission and Council approved, and City Council approved the plat. To address why we're bringing the preliminary plan forward as an update right now is to address the bigger issue and to be able to approve any additional plat within Gulfview Estates within the 3-year requirement that a preliminary plan is good for. So the owner, we required the owner to submit their original master plan as is to ask Plan Commission for approval, contingent that the concerns the engineering department has identified through as-built information provided by the private engineer are resolved and improved as requested. Those requests are included as conditions per Resolution 2018-02. Subsequently, the plat of Gulfview Estates 12th edition will be able to be approved administratively as it meets all of the requirements of such a plat. So that administratively platting, you have to meet the requirement that a preliminary plan of the subdivision has been approved by the Plan Commission and the plat is in conformance with the same, and then or a lot line revision so long as the lots created conform to the density requirements of the applicable zoning district. So the recommendation by staff is that the Plan Commission approve the preliminary plan of Gulfview Estates with conditions. And then now if I go to the resolution to read those conditions that we identified after we got the information from the private engineer and reviewed their as-built to make sure it was in conformance with all of today's ordinances and our standards, being that the last time that this was looked at was 1997. Well, the master plan was approved. So we asked that the property be platted within 3 years, meaning the rest of this, what this preliminary plan includes, there's about 8 lots that are still not platted. So just to, make sure that that is done before this expires. Also that the developer replace the existing 15-inch CMP culvert with a 15-inch RCP culvert with flared ends on both sides. The pipe shall be installed to match existing pipe inverts of 1732.2 and 1731.9 with a max drop of 0.3 feet from inlet to outlet. The developer install an overflow structure concurrent to the replacement of the culvert. The overflow shall be installed above the pipe if possible at the designed elevation of 1734.5. The overflow shall be armored to help prevent erosion. A detail of the overflow shall be submitted to the city engineer for approval. A deed restriction will be required to be submitted and recorded for the detention pond area, and just ensuring that they would never build on that area. And then the berm shown on lot 22 shall not encroach within the lot lines. Revise upon platting of that lot. So, and that berm is part of their detention pond area. That right now it is shown here, like you can see that it cuts off that corner. So we're asking that that whole corner be included in the detention pond area instead of having a lot with an awkward triangle on the other side of a berm.
Would that lot still be administratively approved then with the modifications, or would the plat need to come before us on lot 22?
That would be a lot line revision where I think that could still, that's one of the requirements too of an administrative plat, that as long as, let me go back to that. So long as the lots created conform to the density requirements of the applicable zoning district. So that, and it still would be in conformance as far as size too.
Sure. And then one other question on the culverts. Is that a change in requirements or design standards since the original master plan in 97?
Colin?
I would say no, that is not. It was actually approved as PVC, and it was installed as CMP, and CMP is not wanted within the right-of-way as damage, as this one is damaged and needs to be replaced now. That's what we're trying to prevent. So
okay.
It was just
so we're taking this opportunity to try to
Correct.
correct it and bring it up to standards?
Yes.
Okay. So as this is a preliminary plan, I don't believe we have a public hearing on this. We're just looking for the commission to take action to move this forward at this point.
Right.
I'll open it up to the board then for a motion for discussion. Got a motion by Stein. Second by Dargitz Johnson. Any additional discussion?
Are we allowed to, procedurally, what conditions are we allowed to place on the preliminaries? Go ahead,
Like
sorry.
what we've put on here, that we've done that before, where if we're approving a preliminary plan that there are still things that are unresolved, we have made those requirements before as a condition. But maybe Matt should confirm.
Is it valid to place conditions at the preliminary stage like this? And does your motion include the conditions that the staff support? I just
Yeah.
want to be real clear what we're doing.
So to be clear, the motion on the table is to approve the resolution as presented by staff. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that does include the conditions. But
I can answer that if you want. The preliminary plan is a requirement for platting. So you would make a condition along with a preliminary plan, then they couldn't do any further platting until the condition is met. That's normally how the conditions are. So we like to have preliminary plans free of conditions. But if you need to put a condition on there, it really isn't a condition of the preliminary plan, it's a condition of a future plat.
And then we're this one, so we wouldn't, with all the infrastructure is in, so, and all the improvements have been done, so we wouldn't need to do a development agreement, which is why these could be done administratively, which is why this is the place to get these conditions taken care of.
And to piggyback on that, as these are done, city staff will go out there and ensure that they're done correctly as well. So we know that they meet these conditions.
That satisfies all my questions.
Any other questions or discussion by the board?
Also for insurance or assurance is that we're requiring that they plat within 3 years. So at those times, if we find things that aren't met, that's another time where before we would record it, that we could make sure that these were getting done.
Because at that time, they'd have to bring the preliminary plan back to us for review again and approval.
Well, and we wouldn't, no, if it was after 3 years.
After 3 years, right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, with no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 6 on the agenda is the annexation and zoning of Olive Place Edition. Brandy?
All right, thank you, Blake. I will get to here. Okay. So the petitioners are Robert and Catherine Yerdigan, the owners of the property. The property is, as you all know, as the old tree farm property on the corner of 2nd and 14th up in the northwest section. The petitioners submitted application and petition on April 13th requesting approval for annexation and zoning of R1 single-family residential district. The Park and Rec and Engineering Department are working with the Yerdigans discussing concepts for park dedication that will be submitted to the Park Board and Plan Commission upon the time of platting for approval. Now, this one, because we will bring a plat with a development agreement for your approval, and then that's when you get to okay the location that the Park Board chooses from. That's a requirement of annexation. So the adjacent zoning designation, there's R1 single-family residential to the northeast and south, R2 single-family attached residential districts to the west and east, R3 multifamily residential districts to the north. So, and then R2 zoning is what we just recently rezoned of Valley View, and then that R3 is what runs along 2nd Street on the west side. So the adjacent public right-of-ways will be included in the annexation, and zoning designations will be extended to the center line of the right-of-ways adjacent to the property. That will include 4th Street, 2nd Street, 14th Avenue, and 16th Avenue. The petitioners will connect to city water and sewer with associated tapping fees. They're responsible for the pro rata share for 2nd Street Northwest, which is calculated to approximately be $30,000 for 540 linear feet of frontage. There is approximately 6.64 acres being annexed. The property is not within the floodplain. And then the 5% park dedication requirement per Title 14 would require either 0.33 acres of land donation or money in lieu to be approved by the Park Board. The city or the staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approve the application to annex and zone the above property.
Thank you, Brandy. This time I'd like to open the public hearing if there's anybody to speak on behalf or against the request. So I did have a question for you, Brandy, on the park dedication or the minimum park requirement. Is there a minimum lot size that triggers that event? I mean, this is a pretty substantial amount of land here, but if they were just bringing in a smaller lot, would they still have a requirement?
Mm-hmm. Yep, anything to be annexed or master planned, as how it's written in ordinance right now, is required to do a 5% park dedication. Now, and that's why they leave that option of money in lieu, because with an area that's small, you obviously wouldn't want a little sliver of parkland.
Right.
So that's where then they would take or accept the cash in lieu, and then they put that money towards other park efforts. But most of the time, we would like to see that land is obtained through that park dedication. But you know, that's why that's in there, just to give that.
And that's typical on the larger developments where this is a fairly small acreage, but.
Yep. And kind of where discussions are right now, and nothing has been presented to the park board, it's just been kind of in-house with the developer, is and their agent, is if we could get a bike trail on the west side of the property that would connect on the bike trail that's on 14th right now, and then instead of running up or down 14th and up 2nd, that and what they're trying to achieve here will be, I mean, it'll be like a park because they're doing a lot of landscaping and really improving this block, where then we would have a bike trail here if we can get that achieved. So there would be either a donation of more land as then an access or a bike trail easement that would fulfill the dedication, or if that doesn't work out, if it is cash in lieu, that could be put towards a bike trail.
Would that replace the sidewalk requirement then along 4th Street West when it gets improved?
Yep, so it would only on 4th Street West that we would, instead of the 4 to 5 foot sidewalk that's required, that it would go to the 10 foot, and then that would meet that requirement for the sidewalk. But then sidewalk is required along all public right of ways. So on 14th Avenue, there is an existing sidewalk there along the curb. I believe their intention is to move that, but that is their own discretion. That is fulfilled there. But then 2nd Street West also needs sidewalk along the extent.
And on the park dedication, this isn't directly a park, but I think the ultimate plan for this is to donate it to the Historical Society after the Uredicans no longer want to live there. I think that's the ultimate plan.
That's long range. That was just an idea that they tossed out.
But, yeah, so we're trying to incorporate that too.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the board or the public? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And I think we'll take this in two steps then, Brandy, is that right? We'll do a resolution for the annexation, followed up with a resolution for the zoning?
Yep.
So first off, we've got resolution number 2018-14, it's the annexation. Look for a motion from the board. Motion by Ms. Johnson.
Second.
Second by Hanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And now on to 2018-15, which is the zoning. Look for a motion. Motion by Stein. Second by Johnson. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 7 on the agenda is the annexation and zoning of the Mansell addition.
Okay, so on this item, let me get the map here. Your petitioners are Jared and Tina Mansell, who are the owners of the property. The petitioners submitted the application and petition on April 20th, 2018, requesting approval for annexation and zoning of R1 single-family residential district. By annexing the property, the petitioners are bringing the lot that currently resides in the county as non-conforming, being under 35 acres, into conformance. The petitioners are aware of sewer tapping fees as well as park dedication requirements. The Park and Rec and Engineering Department are working with the Mansells discussing concepts for park dedication that will be submitted to the Park Board and Plan Commission for approval. The facts of this property, the adjacent zoning designations, there's R1 single-family residential district to the north, and then county land surrounds it on the southeast and west. The adjacent public right-of-ways will be included in the annexation, and zoning designations will be extended to the center line of the right-of-ways adjacent to the property, which is South Lake Drive. They will connect to city water and sewer tapping fees associated with frontage, and that being 810 feet of frontage, is approximately $3,547.64. And then this is approximately, they own 12 acres, but they are bringing in approximately 5.8 acres to be annexed. The property is within the 100-year floodplain. The FEMA regulations and Title V building codes and floodplain regulations of the revised city ordinances must be complied with for any activity impacting the area within this annexation. And then also the 5% park dedication requirement per Title 14 would require either 0.29 acres of land or money in lieu to be approved by the Park Board. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the application to annex and zone the above property.
Thank you, Brandy. I'd like to open the public hearing on this. If anybody's to speak on behalf or against, please approach the podium and state your name.
The petitioner is here.
Thanks for your time.
And could you just state your name for the record?
Jared Mansell.
Thanks, Mr. Mansell. I did have a question, I guess, on the request. You own the property immediately to the east as well as.
Correct.
What's the reasoning for limiting the scope of the annexation?
It's mainly wetland there, and we'd like to preserve that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Before we get too much into this, I don't think it's an issue, but dock is my dock. And so if you want me to recuse myself, I will, and I just wanted to notify the Plan Commission. I don't think it has anything to do with what we're doing, and I don't think it's going to affect my decision, but figured I'd give you guys a heads up. He treats me occasionally for ear stuff, so.
I have no issue with it if the petitioner doesn't have an issue with it.
I just figured I'd give you a heads up, so.
Thank you. Was there any other questions for the applicant from the board?
When I was looking through this, I forgot. So the home that's shown on there, is that a proposed home or is that actually your house now?
That house is in the county right now.
Right, but it's an existing building.
Correct.
Is what I'm saying.
Yes.
That is in compliance with all the FEMA regulations for height or whatever.
It's a little out of the flood zone.
It
It's the
It
house
is in this-
itself is out of the flood zone.
Was your intention to build more, put more buildings on that property?
Not that property specifically. I guess our options are keep that current house and keep all the land there, or sell that current house and build further east, which was the purpose for the annexation.
And to kind of, I guess we can kind of get in, he has some concerns, and that's where we're working through, but he's weighing out the options, because right now for annexation, there would be a lot of burden to come into the city, but so that's where we'll get those answers to him on basically there's a fee to Watertown Municipal Utilities that the Subaru Water, their whole, and Mark can probably touch on that. But so that's one of the issues, and then also the park dedication. He knows how much or how many acres are required, and then also an estimate of cash in lieu, but nothing's in writing, so he's not sure on that, where, and Park Board hasn't been approached with anything yet either. So once they do make a decision, he will get that information. But we just want to make sure that we're moving it along, but then also we're getting all the answers at the finish line when he needs to make his final decision if he wants to annex or not. And I mean, this is all sequential, but
So we can make the motions and we can approve the annexation and the zoning, and he still has the opportunity to back out and it reverts to its current standing.
Yep. So we'll keep working with the Mansells and then before we would bring it to council, we would hopefully have those answers so then he can make a sound decision.
Yep. No further questions?
Accessory buildings, I don't know if it's important, but it's all.
I don't believe we have any further questions for you, Mr. Mansell. Thank you for
Thank you.
for coming up.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it.
Anybody else to speak? Go ahead and close the public hearing then. We'll look for a motion from the board on the annexation.
I'll move.
Got a motion by Stein? Second by Johnson. Any additional discussion?
I just have a couple questions. How does this annexation normally work, like on the edges of town here? Because I think there's a couple lake properties that are similar to this. So, Mr. Mansell, or Dr. Mansell is paying all the hookup stuff, right? And then, is there any real monetary obligation on behalf of the city
Well, that's where
besides the possible park money in lieu of?
Yeah, so now with the Sioux Rural Waters territory, where that comes into play, the settlement on that, and actually, Mark, come up and give that. I don't. That's their deal.
Mark Meyer, Utilities. In order to hook up after it's annexed into the city, in order to hook up to our water, there has to be an $8,900 fee paid to Sioux Rural Water. As of last year, there was a territory agreement made, and this is outside of our territory now. And if they don't pay the $8,900, even if it's annexed into the city, they can stay on the well or choose to have Sioux Rural Water hook up if Sioux Rural Water can.
My only concern being that municipal utilities doesn't get stuck with some of the bill, or there's no increased expense for the city or liability for the city.
No, we pass that on to the landowner.
Understood. Thank you. That was my only concern.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Go ahead and vote on it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next on is the zoning. Can I get a motion from the board?
Move.
Motion by Stein.
Second.
Second by Colhane. Any additional discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. On to agenda item 8, and at this point I'd like to remind the board that I'm recusing myself, and I'll pass the reins over to Mr. Stein.
Thank you. Brandy?
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so this next item is the vacation of a portion of 17th Avenue Southeast. Get to here. Okay. The petitioners are Chris Shilkin, the executive director of Watertown Development Company, and the owner of the adjacent property. The applicants and owners of the real property, Watertown Development Company, are the owners of the real property abutting both sides of 17th Avenue Southeast and have submitted a petition to vacate that portion of the public street right away. The petition was submitted to facilitate the proposed construction of a large industrial facility that will move nearly all current operations onto a single footprint and enhance public safety by reducing hazards created by movement of employees and materials between facilities and enhance public welfare by providing adequate space for the proposed project and thus maintaining the presence of a large private employer. The engineering department has reached out to Watertown Municipal Utilities as well as private utility companies, and there are no utilities residing, well, there are, but they're working with them. So there is a gas line that will become either private or I'll get to that. I'll pull up the email, or Mark will confirm. This includes gas, water, and sanitary sewer, meaning there will be no need to retain a utility easement over the proposed vacated right-of-way. The portion of right-of-way that is proposed to be vacated is unimproved. Upon development of adjacent lots, a turnaround easement will be achieved for the remaining portion of 17th Avenue Southeast. The factors which the Planning Commission shall consider when a street vacation is requested are the following, and this is from Liam, your list, and we are working on an all-inclusive list, and we're kind of modeling it after Sioux Falls so that we have just a procedure. And if you guys have ever looked at Sioux Falls, I can email it to you too, because it is, or I can pull it up here. It is a good list. I mean, it gives you just things to think about, and then also we'll add a few different things that the applicant can give us on the front end. But with this one being unimproved, it isn't as impactful as what the previous vacation that we've seen was. So you'll look at the impact on the public travel, community betterment, impact on emergency services, and impact on city infrastructure. The city staff supports Plan Commission recommending the vacation of the public right-of-way under Resolution 2018-16.
Right. As you alluded to, Brandy, I would presume this vacation would be slightly less controversial than some of the other ones that have come in front of the Planning Commission in recent months. I have a question for you, though. With respect to access and ingress and egress to the property, the plant when it's built, will that be off of Mickelson Drive? Will there be an access off of 15th Avenue and or 29th Street?
Let me pull that up.
I was just reviewing these plans today, and the main access will actually be off of 15th Avenue for employee parking, and then they will maintain a private roadway where 17th Avenue currently is. And Michelle can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but that is the idea, that the employees would park on the east side of this using 15th Avenue, and then I'm assuming, depending on traffic flow, they'll use both 29th and Mickelson to get off of 212.
And a portion of 17th Avenue will be a private drive then? Is that what you're saying?
No. It will be extended here on that dark gray, and then this is where the turnaround easement will be achieved, and I'll grab that picture. And what we'll do as a motion, when you make your motion, if you make it a condition, approval upon or with the condition that a turnaround easement be achieved, because we're working on that. But it'll be that half hammerhead that you guys have seen before, like we did at Hidden Valley when Pompesca Drive, where there also will be through access here, although it still will be private, but just for public turnaround, that there is a space for that. And I'll grab that picture for you. Maybe.
Standing correctly, part of the footprint of the building will be directly over where 17th Avenue Southeast is now. Is that correct?
Sorry, I guess I don't have it. Oh, yeah, I do. It's just showing up different. Sorry. There. That's further.
So to for clarification, so part of the reason for the vacation of the 17th Avenue Southeast is because that's going to be part of where the footprint of the building or the property in some fashion is going to be. Is that correct? Okay. I got to open up to public hearing quick, but is your understanding of it, Brandy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And they own all of that property adjacent to both sides of 17th. So they're not cutting off access for other lots that would be using 17th because they own all of it.
Okay. Questions for Brandy before I open up public hearing? All right. I'd like to open up public hearing. Anybody here to speak on behalf, for or against? Please state your name.
I'm Michelle Kakachek from the Watertown Development Company, along with Chris Shilkin from Watertown Development Company, and we've been working on this project for quite some time. And the footprint of their building and just the size of the building necessitates this large number of acres in the vacation of that street. As you can see from the site plan, they will have a test track down on one of those lower acres or lower sections where they will be driving their trucks and doing testing on them from there. So we've been working for a long time as far as making sure that the traffic patterns would be something that would be acceptable to both the area and working with the state and Department of Transportation on that as well. So.
And then also for the bypass here, having one less access is a good thing for that traffic control.
Anybody have any questions for Michelle? All right. Thank you. Anybody else here to speak to this matter? All right. Hearing none, then I'll close the public hearing and ask for any board discussion.
I think we should make a finding of fact and then the condition stated as well attached to any motion. That would be my only recommendation. And I'd be willing to do that. So I'd make a motion to approve the vacation request with the condition that a turnaround easement be achieved based on the following findings of fact. That the vacation has almost no impact on public travel because it's not improved currently. In terms of community betterment, we're likely going to receive a large overall community benefit by the building of a large factory warehouse. Additionally, there's a safety improvements by not having these people drive all over town back and forth and having it located. There's no impact on emergency services that I can tell that would be discernible. And as you stated, the impact on city infrastructure was limited to a single gas line, which you guys have assured us that we'll be able to work out. Furthermore, 29th Street, the bypass is a through road, and limited intersections on that is beneficial for a lot of different reasons. Beneficial safety-wise and beneficial for fast travel on 29th Street. So.
Somebody want to repeat that and second it?
Just want to be thorough, and I like the sound of my own voice.
Opposed?
Time 19 hours 51 minutes 7 seconds. Distance 8 miles.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
0 per mile.
That's how long I've been running, you guys. All right.
No,
It's even on silent, and it still goes off like that.
So next item on the agenda is the open public comment period. I believe we asked for submittals earlier and we didn't receive any. Brandy?
Nope.
So we'll move on to new business.
And I'm actually, with it being not part of the agenda and as new business, well, I suppose I should have told you guys at the beginning that I don't have a presentation for you for the R1A, but you can expect it next time. I know, I really wish that I could have had something in front of you, because we can keep it moving forward, that we can get it potentially added to the ordinance and utilize this building season. And so my goal is for next meeting, May 24th, to have something to present as new business and give you guys an idea of how it'll be incorporated into ordinance. And then the following meeting, which will be June 1st, I think, or 3rd, that first week in June, that then we can maybe have an ordinance amendment in front of you.
Okay.
So
That sounds good.
all right, perfect. I do want to show you guys, though, so I'm going to be sending an email to the park board. We had a meeting on River Ridge Estates, getting that park addition figured out. And so Jay and myself, and then Colin DeYoung and Greg Hofteaser met yesterday, and I feel it's appropriate to give you guys a heads up on the location, and then park board will be getting it tomorrow. If I find it here. Okay, so as you can see, that now what park board left, and what I had told you guys previously, is that they asked for 4 acres of parkland to be dedicated, and then 4.62 acres of money in lieu of the land, and that value still needs to be determined, but we will get that in writing once the park board determines this location is okay. Now, this is where they showed it previously, but as you can see, they changed the zoning. So the main concern was that it was abutting commercial zoning. And so now they changed this to be R3, which is high density. So having green space next to that might be ideal. Also, it's not shown here, but this still is a storm detention area. But as long as that can be designed with the right capacity, that it could still function as green space for a majority of the time. Is that correct, Colin?
Yes, that's correct. That would essentially be a dry pond. It's kind of what we refer to it as, whereas only in very wet conditions does it hold water, and then it's not intended to maintain any water.
And then that's something that Colin or the engineering department would review, and then make sure that, because if it's going to be part of the park, that it is mostly usable, because that's included in their 4 acres, and detention is usually separate.
Remind me where we left off. It sounds like the park keeps shrinking every time we talk about this.
Did it since, I thought I told you guys 4 acres, or...
And maybe I missed a discussion. When we had that joint meeting at the Park and Rec Board, I thought we were talking about 5 or 5.6 or something like that. Because the required dedication is
8.62.
8.62, and I thought that they were asking for like 3.5 acres or something like that. I guess maybe my math is poor. That probably.
I thought it was 4.
Okay, I don't know. I'm just curious. Is this is the same thing that we were talking about at the joint meeting, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And at that time, it was in this location, and we left the meeting because then Park Board went into executive session to make a decision, where when they came out, they were hoping for a park in this area. And because it's central to the residential district, and then that it was abutting the residential, because their concern was the commercial to the north. And that was highway commercial, so C3. And
So that commercial's been changed to R3. It's not actually zoned, though, at this point. This is just in the master plan.
Yep, and so then they'll have to bring a preliminary plan. So once we get this to Park Board, and if they approve of it, then it'll still need to come to the Plan Commission for the preliminary plan, because we'll need to, we just saw it last year and we approved it. But now, because there's major changes, and one of those major changes is the public park location. So that changed, so then we'll have to get that reapproved, the preliminary plan. And then we'll get the park dedicated after that's approved. So we'll probably have that come at the same time, at the same meeting. So we'll approve the preliminary plan, contingent that you guys approve it, and then have the plat there too, so we can get that parkland dedicated, and then get this taken care of.
Sounds good to me.
But then, do you guys have any reservations on any comment on this location or?
No, I mean, if it's going to be R3, I kind of like the idea of having the green space buffer between, the residential, the residential
Single
R1
family.
district and the is it R3?
Yep, so multifamily and single family.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to do that whenever it's practical to do so. So yeah,
I guess my concern is the same as Liam's. I think that thing keeps shrinking every time we talk about it. I thought we were closer to 5 as well.
Yeah, and that I can make that. I'll take that your recommendations to say that plan commission's on more of the whatever the word I'm looking for is, thinking 5 acres would be more appropriate.
Ideally, that 8.62 would be what I would like to see.
Remind me how the division of labor goes, because I left confused from the Park and Rec meeting. They choose the location and the size of the park, but we have to approve the preliminary and the plat, which contains the park location.
Yep. So then you guys need to be on the same page in essence, but no matter what, they have to dedicate 5% of land or cash in lieu. So what the park board did was they said 8.62 acres is a large park. So we want to see half of that be dedicated in land and then half of that be collected as cash in lieu. And so yeah, that's where they were at. And I think that it is right to want to get the land more so in a situation like this, where it's not a small parcel, where it would be a sliver, down by the dog park, that whole green space area just south of the cemetery. That's like, I think 15 acres, which gets used a lot. And so this would be half of that.
And did we ever figure out what the solution was with the valuation issue? Because I recall there being an issue with, what appeared to be a pretty inconsequential amount of money for cash in lieu. And so here we're giving up 4.5 acres, and we're getting, we're not getting very much in return. I just wasn't sure if there was any sort of resolution to that.
Right, yeah, and how the ordinance reads is that it's the valuation of the land upon annexation or master planning. It always has that "or" in there. So, and it says that value to be determined by the Director of Equalization.
Yeah. No, I recall reading the statute and the issues with the statute. I'll only make the comment that I have some serious reservations about it, having sat through that and thinking about it the last couple of weeks. I don't believe there's any park north of 14th Avenue, and certainly not north of 14th Avenue and west of 81. And there's a lot of young families in that particular area. I haven't heard anything from them explicitly, but I would imagine that they will or would like a park. And so I think it's important that we protect that interest. So that was my only comment. I don't want to explode this entire thing, but that's my comment.
I think
Appreciate it.
Jefferson School is actually considered a park. Just to keep that in mind. I guess that's the only one I think.
But it's technically private, where we don't incorporate it into our public park system. It can be treated as a park because it's a public school, so they can use it, but it's not a city-owned property.
The way the ordinance is written, this is ours to give away, and once we give it away, it's gone, and it's gone forever. And so we have to think about that it's not just $6,000 today or $18,000 today. It's not having that access, not having the safe place for children to play, whatever it is. And we will have some, but it will be limited to the constraints that were shown here today. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm with you, Liam. I mean, I would definitely prefer to see the land. I wasn't able to participate in the previous meeting, but you know, parkland is valuable for the community. So the more we can get, I think the better off we are as a whole.
I'm not saying blanket that I won't support whatever the staff and Greg Hofteaser comes up with, but we need to keep that in mind, especially going forward to avoid this issue in the future.
Definitely.
Yep.
But yeah, no, good comments, and I'll make sure to carry that forward.
Was there any other new business?
Nope, unless you guys have anything.
Any old business? No need for executive session?
Nope.
Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.